I have binge watched your channel and thought I would share my success story with a bar girl that I met in Bangkok. It's quite a long one, so strap in. My story goes back to when Thailand opened their borders again and we was allowed to travel after the big C word. I first actually got to Thailand one day before they closed the borders. I ended up staying for about 4 months as they was allowing people to stay in the kingdom without a visa during that time. It was fun to start with. I work online so I wasn't affected, but as the government added alcohol bans and then finally a nighttime curfew, I thought it was pretty much pointless to stay in Thailand when I couldn't exactly do anything. Paying for rent was extremely cheap at this time though. I decided it was time to head back to the UK until this whole thing blew over. Little did I know that it would be over a year until we were allowed back to travel to Thailand. While I was back in the UK, I pretty much just worked from home every day and became a virtual tourist by watching YouTubers in Thailand, reading stories and listening to travel advice. It became a daily routine watching this stuff and I was itching to get back and dive into it myself. I started watching and reading stories about older men that fall in love with Thai bar girls, and I remember thinking, how can they be so stupid? I would never fall for the tricks of a bar girl or fall in love with one. Remember this part because it will be important later. Anyway, after a year stuck at home, Thailand finally introduced something called the Phuket Sandbox. Essentially, what this was is that people could come to Thailand, but only Phuket. They had to have a negative COVID test and then another test on arrival where they would wait in their hotel until the test was back. Only then could you leave your hotel, but even then you could only go to certain areas in Phuket, Bangla Road being one of them. This sounded like a nightmare and to be honest sounded like it would be too much work, but as I've been bored stuck at home for over a year, I decided to give it a go. I booked everything, got the documents sorted, and then 1 week before flying, a new variant is announced and the whole world goes crazy again, including Thailand. I can't remember if they decided to stop the program or if I cancelled my own trip by choice, but I thought it's best not to waste any money and head there. A couple of months later, and they introduced that after 7 days in Phuket and a negative test, you are allowed free travel all over Thailand. I can't remember the exact rules, so I may have something mixed up, but that was the basic gist of the Sandbox program. Fly to Phuket, wait for a negative test, travel to Thailand, if you please. Again, I book another ticket to Phuket, hoping this time I make it into the kingdom. It's now time to fly for me. I have all the documents in order, got the Thailand pass, no new variants, and I have never been so happy to get on a plane in my life. Upon arriving in Phuket, I had to have another test and then the hotel taxi would take me from the airport straight to my hotel where I would have to sit and wait for my test to come. It took 3 days for the test to come back and it was horrible. My hotel was close to Bangla Road and every night I could hear the music, the girls cheering, the atmosphere was killing me. It was tempting to sneak out a few times, but if you watch the news in Thailand around that time, tourists who was going out before they got their results back was getting arrested, deported and even blacklisted from the country. My test came back negative and I was ready to let loose. My plan was to spend 1 week in Phuket before heading to Bangkok for 1 week and then spend rest of my holiday in Pattaya. My whole week in Phuket I was just spending time on Bangla Road, most of the time in the popular Australian bar. I forgot the name of it now, but during this time, as there wasn't many tourists, the Australian bar was the only one that seemed busy. A lot of people online were saying that they don't want to waste money on going to Thailand because it's not busy. But for me, it was the perfect time. The girls had no customers, so all their attention was focused on you. In that bar on Bangla Road, I got friendly with one of the bar girls. She would come and sit with me every night and play this dice game where the loser would buy the other one a drink. She came back to my hotel once or twice, but I was saving myself for Pattaya really before I dived into having some hotel room companions. Phuket was okay I guess, but in my eyes it gets boring fast, and my week was up, so it was time to head to Bangkok and see what was in store there. My hotel was on Sukhumvit Soi 11. My plan was to just explore the nightlife around Sukhumvit Road. I had already been to Kawasan Road before COVID, and it's really not for me. Too busy, too many young tourists, and basically, I'm just too old for that place. Remember when I said I would never fall for a bar girl? I consider myself streetwise, and all the horror stories I read, I thought to myself, I'm never stupid enough to fall for all that. Well, that was about to change. I was walking on Sukhumvit Soi 8 I believe, heading towards Soi 4 because I was going to have a night in Nana Plaza. And as I walked past this bar, I saw a girl playing pool. Our eyes met and she signalled for me to come into the bar. I pointed at my watch like I was late for something and carried on walking. This girl had a perfect smile, beautiful body, and was just awesome to look at. I was actually debating going back to the bar, but instead I pressed on to Nana Plaza, though I did keep a mental note to go back to the girls' bar the following night. Anyway, I get to Nana Plaza and have a beer in the centre bar at the bottom, just browsing around seeing which go-go bar interested me. I saw one where the woman outside was hitting customers on the backside with those plastic things. Of course, I chose that one to go in. While in there were a lot of girls dancing, but there was literally me and like 3 other customers that appeared to be Korean. The show was pretty decent, but I wouldn't say that the girls was very high class. Well, anyway, that's Nana Plaza checked off the list. I had been playing on Tinder for a while being in Thailand, and the following night I was chatting with a girl that wanted to meet me. She told me straight she was a bar girl, and by sheer coincidence, she worked in the same bar that the girl I saw last night works in. Now, I was in a bit of a sticky situation. I wanted to go and see the girl that I saw while passing last night, but if I went there, then the girl from Tinder would think that I'm going to meet her. So I told the girl from Tinder that I am not interested in paying for any services and not looking for anything, but if she wanted, I would come to the bar and drink with her. At least then, she gets a bit of something from the lady drinks. She agreed, and that night I went to the bar to see her, but in reality, I was only going to the bar to see the girl that was playing pool the previous night. Once I got to the bar, the Tinder girl introduced herself to me, and we sat and had a couple of beers. I did notice the other girl, but she was playing pool at a table on the other side of the bar, and I couldn't get her attention. Later in the night, she finally saw me and began playing pool on the table near me, but she saw that I was sat with her friend that I had met on Tinder. Every now and again we would make eye contact and smile at each other. I could see she was interested, as was I. Finally, she came over to the bar and sat next to me, started chatting with me, and as the night went on, Tinder girl could see I wasn't interested in her, and she found herself a different customer. The night was going as planned. I asked the girl if she remembers me from walking by yesterday. She said yes, of course I do. I replied, I just had to come back and see you again. She gave me a big smile. She eventually told me her name was June. She was 38, which is 3 years older than me, and she has 3 kids that lived in Isan. Pretty much the basic bar girl story. I must mention at this time, the bars in Thailand had to stop selling alcohol at 11 PM or 10 PM, I can't remember which, and we was getting close to shutting time. June told me that there was a store on Sukhumvit that sold beers in plastic cups where we could sit and drink on the street. It sounded like a hidden secret place, but when she took me there, it was full of people with tables and chairs. Surely the police knew what was going on. But in that country, if you have the money, I guess you can get away with a lot of things. The first night was perfect. I got along with her really well. She introduced me to some of her friends that was at the bar, and we drank until about 1 AM. I told her that I wanted her to come back to my hotel and spend the night, but that I'm not really into the paying for fun scene, and I knew she was working. I told her I have no issue with her work and fully understand, but I just wasn't that type of tourist. She seemed to understand. June said that she would come back to my hotel and stay the night without being compensated for her time. Jackpot. Needless to say, we didn't get much sleep that night. The next morning, we exchanged line contacts and she asked me to come and see her again in the bar tonight if I had no plans. I wanted to play it cool, so I said, I will see once I finish work. She gave me a kiss and went on her way. I was pretty starstruck by this girl, and I remember thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? I knew it was a bad idea to get feelings for a bar girl. I was contemplating cutting my Bangkok trip short and heading to Pattaya early. Regardless of what I should and shouldn't have done, I ended up spending the rest of the week in her bar or in my hotel room with her. There wasn't a night that we wasn't together. The night before I was heading to Pattaya, she told me that she had feelings for me and didn't want me to leave. I also told her that I had feelings for her, which was true. I didn't know if this was just a game that bar girls play or not, but I felt she was being genuine about her feelings. I explained to her that I would be going to Pattaya and then I'll return to Bangkok for her, even though in reality I wasn't sure if I would be back. That last night together, we didn't have any bedroom fun, we just talked all night and laid in each other's arms. That was it. Bangkok had me now. The next day, we said our goodbyes and I got a taxi to Pattaya, not knowing which direction my holiday was going. My plan all along was to have fun while away, but since meeting June, all my plans had changed. I got to Pattaya where I booked an Airbnb for the week. The place was called CCR. It was so cheap due to not many tourists. I think it cost me like 1,000 baht for the whole week, without bills included. The first couple of nights I went out, headed to some bars and had a drink with a few ladies. But every time I would talk to a girl, I was comparing her with June, and they would never even come close. You know that feeling you get when you just want to be with that one person, and no matter what you do, you can't stop thinking about her? Well, that's how I felt. I texted June and asked her how she would feel if I cut my trip early and came back to Bangkok so I could be with her. She replied that she would love that, so that's what I did. After 3 days in Pattaya, I was once again in a taxi and heading back to Bangkok. I only had a couple of days before my flight, but at that time, Thailand had something called a COVID visa, which was essentially a free pass to stay in Thailand, no matter what visa you had or if you was on a visa waiver. After speaking it over with June, we decided that I will rent out a place on Airbnb and extend for an extra month. Prices were so cheap then, and I worked remotely, so it was no problem for me. We got a place in Bangkok, a place called Onut, and soon after, June pretty much moved in with me. Yes, things was going fast between us, but I wouldn't have changed a thing. I loved being around her, and she made everything better for me, something I did not expect or plan to happen while on my Thailand trip. Okay, so the next hurdle, her working in a bar. I'm only human. I don't want a girlfriend that works in a bar and entertains customers. She was happy to stay with me, but I would have to keep paying the bar 500 baht a day and obviously give her some money for her missing out at work. I wanted this to be a real relationship and not a paid one, so after a couple of weeks, to justify me giving her money, I slowly started teaching her what I do for work, so she could help me and I can pay her a salary. It turns out she was actually pretty good at the work. She was making me money, and in turn, I was paying her a salary. I asked her if I could buy her out of the bar for good, and we just do my work from now on. She didn't even take time to think and said yes instantly. After a bit of haggling with the bar, I paid June out of the bar, and now the only time she ever goes there is if we both go to see her friends. I ended up staying in Thailand for just over a year on the visa waiver thing. Then I did 2 border runs to Cambodia, so altogether I was in Thailand with June for about 18 months. During that time, we took a trip to Isan so I could meet her family and her kids. Although they didn't speak any English, it was nice to see how they live and how lucky I actually am to live the way I do. We have discussed our future quite a lot, and we both show no interest in leaving Thailand for the UK or any Western country. We both want to stay in Thailand, maybe not stay in Bangkok, but for now, that's where we live. The only issue right now is visas. Thailand is such a headache when it comes to visas compared to some other Asian countries, such as the Philippines. I think the next step for me and June is to tie the knot. We have had little chats, but never serious chats, so who knows. Like every other couple in the world, we have our ups and downs, and if any of your listeners are in relationships with a Thai girl, you know that they can become extremely jealous. I put a stop to her jealousy early on in the relationship and explained to her that being too jealous could lead to a breakup, so please trust me as you have no reason not to. Well, I hope you enjoyed my story, and I'll be sure to submit a part 2 on where our relationship ends up. Keep up the good work and keep the stories coming.